Hi, I'm Ali Conway from Silvergrass Design, and in this video I wanted to talk through a case study that I'm working on at the moment, a new commission, and it's this rather awkward plot, and it made me think that lots of us end up with a garden that's got these awkward angles and shapes, and their garden plots aren't always square and nice and tidy, and often the designs that you pick up in books are sort of based on a classic rectangular shaped garden. So I thought I'd talk you through how I'm going to deal with this plot, which has got very awkward angles. So here's how the garden looks now. As you can see, it's a little bit tired. The owners haven't had much chance to do anything with their plot at the moment. They've had major renovations going on to the house. The interior of the house is now looking fantastic, and it's time to create an equally stunning contemporary garden to match the interior of their house. So the most important thing when designing with awkward shapes is to just forget that they're there, really. It sounds a bit weird, but when I sort of first put pen to paper, I forget that I've got a funny angle going up in that right hand corner, which is different from the angle in the left hand corner, and that all my fences are wonky. I literally design as if I'm ignoring the boundaries, and then I chop off the design where it goes over the edges, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to do is create really strong horizontal and vertical lines, and I'm trying to sort of blur the edges. So creating new shapes, really. I'm creating very strong rectangular and square shapes, and by using the contrast paving, I'm using a light porcelain tile contrasted with a dark slate grey smaller unit. I'm actually creating sort of sight lines through the garden. So up in that left hand corner there, you can see I've created a box, a complete square around a feature tree, and I've also created lines that are drawing out from the house. And when this is built, if this is the one that they choose, you just won't notice that there are weird angles going on, that the garden is actually sort of skewed to one side of the house. And here's how it looks as a 3D visual. So you can see that we've created our own rectangular shapes. Nobody will know that there's funny angles, and I've enhanced those shapes with strong vertical elements using these pleached trees, which are like a kind of hedge on stilts. It gives fantastic views through the new big picture windows that the clients had built on the back on their extension, and you can see that left hand square in the top left corner. We've created our own new shape in the garden, so the angles just have disappeared. We haven't got a funny shaped garden, we've got a very square, rectangular, contemporary space, beautiful sunken seating area. It's going to be lit up at night, a little bit of planting. The client didn't want a lot of planting, they're not keen gardeners at all. So we're going to make it a very light, funky, contemporary, modern entertainment space. And here's option 2 that I presented to my client. A little bit simpler in terms of lines, but the same visual tricks. I've got strong horizontal lines going across the garden and a very strong vertical line going out from the house in that dark grey slate tile. And that's creating this kind of visual trick and drawing the eye away from the corners where we've got the funny angles, drawing the eye away from the funny slanting angular fences, and just keeping everything square and rectangular shaped. And last but not least, this is the third design option that I've presented to the client. And you may think that by skewing the garden at a 45-degree angle that I'm introducing even more angles, and is this going to be confusing to the eye? And actually it's not. This one I've also mocked up in 3D just because it really helps visualise this space. And by actually kind of tilting it to one side, a little quirky sort of tilt there to the side at a proper 45-degree angle, it creates really strong rectangular shapes. And it doesn't matter that those rectangular shapes kind of disappear off the side of the garden. It's a visual trick. That lawn shape, even though it's not a complete square, our brain is tricked into thinking that it is. So we're cheating, basically. We're pretending that there's more space than there is. we're making the garden bigger, and we're taking the eye completely away from those corners. We're creating new squares and rectangles, and the new view, as you can see from the picture windows, is spectacular. We've got a new focal point. We've taken that in at an angle, but it just squares it up. So it's a bit of a visual trick. You'd think it might confuse things, but actually sometimes when you've got funny angles going on, by squaring it all up, as in the first two design options, or taking it all off at a 45-degree angle, really helps. The whole trick with garden design is getting the ground shapes right. It's all about good, strong geometry. Once you've got that geometry in place, then you can add all the fancy features and lighting and play around with the materials and focal points. But the really, really key thing is to get those ground shapes right. And all of these three designs play with the space in that way and help with those tricky, awkward angles.